this morning before we started the message, we just want to try to give some updates. Cindy and Scott, do y'all have any updates on Gaddis?
He had some tests run Friday, and they're just waiting to hear the results to see what the next step's gonna be, but, the clots are still there, and he's still in a lot of pain.
Yeah, I'd heard that they got him some extra pain
They
meds.
did get some extra, and we're very thankful for that, because he's not been sleeping at all.
So remember to forget us, be praying for him. And Bill Henn, he's actually in Gatlinburg.
Well, they're leaving today.
Oh, they're leaving today. They're going to Gatlinburg. So pray for Gatlinburg. No, it's actually a blessing that he's getting to go there. I mean, just thinking about he just had surgery a couple of weeks ago. Now he's getting to go. That's an awesome thing. But he still has some procedures coming up that we need to pray for.
Yeah, his surgery right now is set for the 21st, and that will be for his appendectomy. And then the next colonoscopy will be sometime after that. Depending on how he does.
Yeah. So we want to keep lifting up Bill.
21st of June.
21st of June, okay. Any other prayer requests?
The young man that was sitting next to me, that's Sherry's oldest grandson, Devontae. She dropped him off
Sherry's
for church.
oldest.
Her other Ocean is sick, so she dropped him off at church and was gonna pick him back up. But that's who the young man is that was sitting next to me.
This is his first time being here, period. That's awesome.
I told him you would let him take a flower to her
Oh, of course, of
for
course.
Mother's Day.
Yes. I'm glad you shared that. That's awesome. If y'all get a chance to also, we got Greg back here. Greg's been here before, but it's been a while. He's had a lot happen in his life.
Hey, Greg.
He just lost his aunt and your best friend. And so he's really seeking the Lord with a lot of the stuff that he's going through. And so if you get a chance to go over, talk to him and pray with him and encourage him, Greg would really appreciate that. And we're glad that you came here this morning. This morning we're extra blessed because you don't have to listen to me. Yeah, Donna Marie's like, yes! I saw it. Yeah, it was hidden behind your contacts that you're wearing underneath your glasses. But we have a special guest speaker who's going to be coming, and where are they? They're not here yet. Wait, no! It's my wife, and if y'all just saw the look that she just gave me, I better go sit down and be quiet. But she'll share more, but God has been working on what she's going to share with you all this morning for about a couple of months. And there's some things that God has taken her in a deep dive in some scriptures that I think will really help all of us. And so she may not even get through. It may be a two-parter. So next week she might share even more. But
I guess I'm going to do nursery for you. I can hear a pin drop in here.
all
Just
right.
leave it up here then.
So come on up. We want to pray over you. Father, I thank you for this woman right here, this mother, and but I thank you more than anything else, that her heart for you, her heart for your truth, her heart for your understanding, and her heart for your heart. And Lord, I pray right now you give her discernment, you give her wisdom, you give her compassion, and you give her boldness, and you take away any distractions that she might have in her mind or in the midst, and allow her just to be able to focus totally on you and on what you want to share with us. We say this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Can y'all hear me if I don't use the... I have a pretty big voice. I got a mama voice and a teacher voice. Well, I heard several of you mention at the beginning of the year that God had given you a word for the year and probably working through you. teaching you more about that every day. And from the very beginning, he gave me the word rest. And he's been teaching me about that in different ways. And so a couple months ago, when I started learning more about these scriptures and the concept of rest, I thought, Mother's Day? That is like the biggest oxymoron, teaching a mom about rest. And there's also moms, women who have never been a mom physically, but God has given them a myriad of young people to love on, or young adults to love on, and they're every much a mom because they have that compassion and kindness of Jesus living in them. So, so anyway, but I'm going to give you an overview, because I'm not sure how much I'll get through today, but the title is Rest, and I have what steals our rest is one of the first parts. How do we enter into his rest? And then will you accept his invitation to rest? I'm going to focus on the first part. And you know how Tony and Dan so often say, we're going to do something different today. Well, I always look at them and say, I'm really doing something different today. This is very much out of my comfort zone. Some of you know that I love to journal. And several years ago, I read about a lady in Guidepost magazine who was having trouble hearing the Lord, which I did for years and years and years. I thought it was just my own imagination or my thoughts, because I struggle with attention and focusing. But she said what she did was she just started writing prayers every morning. And she would ask questions and just converse with the Lord. And in time, he would answer her. And so I started doing that. I'm getting chills just talking about it. So I started doing that. And God started talking to me. And some people call him God, Father, Papa, Daddy. I call him Abba. That's just, I always have. And so every morning it's good morning, Abba. And so what he has asked me to do is to share some of those conversations with you. And I'm really nervous because Satan wants me to think that this is the dumbest thing. Nobody's going to be interested. They're going to think you're foolish and you're weak. And I don't care. I'm going to do what God wants me to do. So,
Michelle, the word of the year is rest as well. So I think that I'm hearing a theme here for the church. So you should not let Satan.
okay. Thank you for that. All right. So this is where it all started. And I actually have little tabs so I remember what to read. All right. This is Saturday, February 3rd. This is called the first deep dive. Good morning, Abba. All my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. There's quite a few emotions in the Jones household this week. Since finding out that Tony might have had a mini stroke and diabetes and high blood pressure, and he gave me permission to share this, okay? I would not share this if it would embarrass him or hurt his feelings. So I was so angry at Tony, and I told him in love because I was afraid. I was very scared to lose him. Ever since we quit Ageless, I've been angry and hurt that our journey, our health journey that we've been on, it just sort of faltered. But I talked with him and I talked to the Lord and worked through it. I say this humbly, Abba, because on my own I can do nothing, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Don't worry. Thank you for being so good to me. You strengthen me when I'm weak. You calm me when I'm fearful or anxious. You fill me with joy bubbling over just because you love me and you live within me. Your yoke is easy and your burden is truly light. And at that point, all of a sudden I started thinking about some of the words to Matthew 11:28-30, which is, come to me, all you who are weak and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So at that point, I didn't know why then, but at that point, I just kept writing in my journal, and so I picked out some words. I picked out the word weary, and I looked up the Greek meaning. I used the Bible Hub on my phone, and You can look up a verse, and then you can, at the top there's some little things you can scroll, and I always go to the one that says lexicon. And it'll give you that verb, and then it will tell you different meanings, and it'll give other scriptures that have that word. But that word doesn't always mean the same thing in every scripture. You know that. It has many different meanings. And so basically what started this journey was I started looking up certain words, and I started looking at their specific meaning. And I just felt like the Lord was telling me, this is what I'm telling you. This is not, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. He was really telling me deeply about some of these words. Let's see. So here are the words, and I hope next week I'll have it printed out because it's kind of hard to hear without seeing it. But come to me, all you who are weary. And that means you're laboring until you're completely worn out. You're depleted physically and mentally. I'm going to do this way. Depleted physically and mentally. So come to me, all you who labor until you just about drop. And you who are heavy laden. That's to load up or to overload, like you're packing up a donkey or a camel, which we don't do anymore, like a car, if a car had feelings. Literally means weighted down. So those of you that are just depleted and exhausted, and you're just so weighed down, you know, like carrying 50 grocery bags in the house, you just can't hardly take a step. I will give you rest. This is one of my favorite ones. Give you rest in this, the Greek here means to give an intermission from your labor. So I took my mom to the Gaither Vocal Band Friday, and they had an intermission. But it's different in this tense, because what it means is give an intermission from labor in order to recover. In order to recover. So it's not just take a break, you know, get a drink of water, the coach will blow the whistle, and you come right back in. There's no conditions and there's no expectations. It's just so that we can recover. Take my yoke upon you. In this sense, the yoke means it's an object that unites two animals or two people to move together as one. And the word means balanced. So I was thinking the difference between like carrying 6 or 7 grocery bags on one arm and trying to go into the house and you're shuffling versus having 3 here and 3 here. Also, I was thinking of mothers. You have the car seat in this arm and you have the heavy diaper bag in this arm, so that weighs it out just a little bit more. But I also was thinking about a 3-legged race. How many of you ever were in a 3-legged race? I'm assuming when you were kids. Well, believe it or not, I loved the 3-legged race because I was kind of good at it. I don't know why. I think it's very black and white. There's no abstract. You know, you tie your legs together and you communicate. Let's go on the center legs. Let's start the center legs first, you know. That reminded me of yoke, a 3-legged race. You're moving together, you're balanced, and just whatever you're going through. So take my yoke upon you that's balanced and learn of me. And this is not just learning where you overhear, you just happen to hear. But this learning is an action verb. It's to gain knowledge, factual knowledge, as one learns from experience, to come to realize. So this reminded me of the disciples. They learned by experience. They weren't just passively listening, they were actively listening and learning. So learn of me by my experience. For I am gentle, which means gentle, and meek, and I am humble in heart. Humble here is an inner lowliness in position or spirit. And doesn't this sound like Jesus? Relying on God rather than being self-reliant. So he intentionally humbled himself, lowered himself in position and spirit. And you will, I'm humble in heart, which means mind. It also means your character and intention. Humble in your heart, in your mind, your character, and your intentions, the pure motives. And you will find rest. Rest means cessation from labor. It also means respite. And I'm really familiar with that word. The respite is a short period of rest or relief from something difficult or something unpleasant. I had a handicapped brother Well, I still have a handicapped brother, but growing up, he was about 6 years younger than me. He's a partial paraplegic. He has no muscles from the waist down. And he was just the happiest little thing. And so I would help carry him around and do things. But I know my dad was so frustrated during my childhood, and I really never understood. Now I understand. There's 4 of us kids, and Georgie had a lot of special needs. So my mom, having 4 kids, didn't really have a lot of babysitters. Now I understood why it meant so much to her to get respite care through Cardinal Hill Hospital. And those of you that have babysat kids or you've had children, you know that if you're ready to go to bed but those kids aren't asleep yet, you really can't turn it off and go to sleep. Because you just got one ear open. Or I know some people, if you go to bed and your older kids are not home yet, you can't really rest. So that short period of rest and relief from something difficult or unpleasant. And again, that's like give you rest in order to recover. That's another way to say it. For my yoke is easy. I believe Brother Mike taught us about this a long time ago. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. And Mike taught us that that word is fitting. My yoke is fitting. Doesn't mean it's easy to carry. The word in the Greek says goodness and kindness. It literally means goodness and kindness. So my yoke is full of goodness and kindness. It's usefully kind. I was remembering in college, I worked at John Ward's stables. I didn't ride the horses, but I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and worked till 8 o'clock in the morning. And after they had run the horses, these were race horses, they'd bring them back in the barn and they're wet and they stink and they're hot and tired. And so I would take the reins and I'd walk them around the barn 3 or 4 times. It was just a great big loop, and then put them back. Sometimes these horses are really mean. Some of them were really nice. I only got bit once and I got stepped on twice. And I loved it because I loved horses. I know what I was going to say. But when you get ready to ride a horse, you have to make sure he's brushed, there's no debris, there's no dirt, and you put the blanket on first, and then you put on the saddle, and then there's the bridle and all the other parts. But if there's something underneath that blanket, you know, especially if you're putting a saddle on and somebody's sitting on it, it's like having a rock in your shoe. You can't really focus. You're just, you know, you can imagine walking with a rock in your shoe. And so my yoke is easy. It's well fitted. It's usefully kind. It's full of goodness and kindness. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. This one I thought was interesting. The Greek word here means a portion carried by an individual that cannot be transferred to another individual. It's something that's assigned to you individually. I've never heard that. Has anybody ever heard that? The burden is, yeah. It's also the same word in Galatians 6:2 and also Galatians 6:5. Would somebody turn to 6:2, Galatians 6:2 and read that? And then somebody else get Galatians 6:5. All right, who's got 6:2?
It says, bear one another's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ.
So bear one another's burdens. But he said it's a portion carried by an individual that cannot be transferred or shifted to another. So what about the other one? Is that a contradiction? Who's got 6:5?
For we are each responsible for our own conduct.
And the other way to say that is carry your own burdens, basically. Carry your own burdens. And I remember Mike taught us that sounds like a contradiction, but the example he gave us was each one should help each other with their wheelbarrow, full of boulders, whatever, bricks. but we should all carry our own backpack. So it's not a contradiction. I love how Jesus gave examples and stories to make it easier to remember. And my burden is light. My assigned portion is light. It's of little weight. It's easily managed. I like that. Jesus isn't going to put that backpack full of bricks on us. It's easily managed. It's easy to move with. So at one point let's see, where did I write it? Oh, I think it's up here. I wrote out a summary. If I can find it. Matthew 11, 28 through 30 with the Greek interpretation. It's a little bit bumpy, but bear with me. Come to me, all you who are completely depleted physically and mentally, and overloaded until you are weighed down. And I will give you an intermission from your labor in order to recover. Take my object that enables you to move together as one or balanced, and gain factual knowledge. Learn from experiences with me, for I am gentle and meek and intentionally lowly in spirit, relying only on God and my character and my mind. And you will find respite for your mind, your will, and your emotions. For my yoke is well fitted in a good and kind way, and my cargo or portion that can only be carried by an individual, can't be transferred to another, is easy to move with because it's of little weight. So that's the first part of what the Lord taught me. And I didn't know why at that point. I had no idea why. I woke up praising the Lord. I was a little bit afraid because of the health information we had just found out about Tony. But there was a reason God had me do that deep dive, as I call it. This next was toward the end of February, and we had taken the month off of worship and just to get a respite ourselves. And we went to Georgetown, and we saw the fourth part of The Chosen, third and fourth of the next season of The Chosen.
It was season 4 in one of the parts of it.
Third and fourth, and it was really good. So we went out to just have some time to ourselves, to watch a movie, to go antique shopping, because I like to, and just enjoy ourselves for a couple of days. Good morning, Abba. We had such a wonderful getaway in Georgetown this weekend. First, we saw the second season of The Chosen. Wow, so eye-opening. Then we checked into the hotel that we really like to go to. It's the best one I ever thought that we've ever been to. I might like to take the kids sometime. We went out to eat. Then on Monday morning, Tony got a text from, I guess, the elders regarding what had transpired the day before about the service, and the sparkle went out of his eyes. He was immediately sad and distant, kind of morose as the day went by, and he had more time to think, and by the end of the day, I felt like he was in a really bad place. And after that morning text message, I thought, our vacation is over. When we got home, it was like a heavy, wet blanket of sadness and despair and despondency covered him as he read and received text after text from other people that he ministers to, not just people in our church. It made his imagination go wild, and I had to pray for him at midnight. He had to play instrumental worship music as we fell asleep, and he still didn't fall asleep. Now, on Tuesday morning, he just called me from work in tears to share about the riots over the weekend at the Ridge. These were young people, weren't they? Including 3 staff members that were hurt. One had to go to the hospital with a traumatic brain injury. At that point, the hospital discharged 40 kids, and 4 staff quit on the spot, with more to come. So Laura, I'm ashamed to say that I was irritated on Monday by the time we came home. Because reading all those texts and talking to people I was feeling angry because I just thought, just don't pick your phone up. It was my selfishness. It seemed like he couldn't search fast enough to find all the trouble he could find or all the situations that were difficult so he could think about them and worry about them, and that's not what you were doing. I know that. And I was sad to say I spent Monday night in my room watching YouTube videos, angry. He was watching something, living by himself. And I said, what do I do, Abba? What do we do? He says, what does the word say? I said, about what specifically? He said, about
Rest.
rest. Oh. I said, cast your cares upon me and learn of me, for I am meek and gentle, and you will find rest for your soul. Oh yes, you had me do a word study on this back a month ago, for such a time as this. Thank you, Abba. So I eventually, I think the next morning I rewrote this and I shared this with Tony and I prayed over him. I need to show this. After this, he showed me some things about myself during that month, February, the month that we weren't active in leading. I said, you've shown me some things during my month of leading worship. One thing is how much the maintenance of my health requires of me every day. And now helping Tony with his as well. Because I was busy with lesser things. I wasn't doing the things that were most important. And second, how little time I really spend with my family, my kids, my grandkids, church family. Such a beautiful garden of love and blessing originating from you. Your life and your love. You are so good to me, and I love how you, Jesus, love me so well. So this is where he gave me these questions. So, audience participation time. What steals our rest? Worry.
The devil.
Devil.
Confusion.
Confusion.
Stress.
That's a big one. Stress. Does it always happen to us out of the blue, or do we allow it?
We allow it.
We allow.
We can allow it, can't we?
The devil tries to control everything.
Yeah, he does.
It's also a cultural thing. We go 24/7.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I think that's exactly what he was teaching me at the beginning of all this. I love to stay busy, and I will drive myself into the ground because I love to do things. I love projects and all that. So this is one small frustration. This is kind of dumb, but when I'm doing dishes, I don't mean to do it. It's sort of an obsession. I'm on medicine for this. But when I'm doing dishes, you know, I'm loading the dishwasher and washing, and then I'll splatter water on the backsplash and the base of the faucet and the handle, whatever. And so while I'm doing dishes, I stop everything to take a washcloth and wipe it on down again. Of course, I'm doing dishes, you know, so I'm splashing water and I have to stop and wipe it down again. Well, it's a touch faucet. So the faucet is off and I go to wipe and I activate it. Now it's all over my arm. I've got water in my gloves, you know. And our dishwasher wasn't installed completely correctly, so there's not screws holding it in real well. So if I have the bottom rack and the center rack, or even just the top out, just at least a little bit, it's going to tip out. Okay? So there's just little things that frustrate you, and they shouldn't, but that's mine. I have to keep my thing. And you get that, it's so silly, but you can easily let something like that start you on the wrong foot for the day. It doesn't have to be the big thing. So these things that steal our rest, are these something we can change? Or are these innate? Something God created in us from before birth.
Some of that you can change.
Yeah, we should change things, you know, not let things get to you so bad. Be calm, be in control. And, you know, just, you have to remember, strong minds create strong bodies. Weak minds create weak bodies. So don't let stuff get to you. Don't let it control you.
Easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah.
So-
In the heat of the morning. It's good advice. Yeah, it's good advice. Instead of not letting it get to me, I'll take it to the Lord and ask Him to
Amen.
help. Which leads into, how do we release these things to God? What do you all do when you are overwhelmed and you're frustrated and you're just seeing you're on your way to maybe starting a bad day? How do you release these things to God? What do you all do?
Well, I know for me, like, I basically exhaust all my own individual resources and all my solutions that I think I have, right? And then I become weary, like it says in the word there, and then eventually I just give up and I ask God to help me. So recently I've been trying to stop smoking cigarettes, and I literally did what I just laid out for y'all. Like, I tried all of my own man-made, you know, use my imagination, try to come up with solutions for myself. It didn't work, you know, surprise, right? And eventually I just had to give it up to God, you know, and just ask Him to help me, you know, quit smoking cigarettes. And unsurprisingly, recently successfully, you know, not all the way quit yet, but I'm making
Hey!
progress.
That's hard. Give him a hand, y'all. That's hard work.
Yeah. I
That's
liked
hard
how
work.
you looked up the definition for weary, because that really brought that to my mind. Like,
It's a great word, a great definition.
So Michelle, one of the things that I think of, I think that maybe the last time I spoke, I talked about it.
Yeah.
Although I can't really place quite where it was, so I'm not sure, but, Jesus said that He didn't do anything unless the Father told Him to. And what I find is when I'm in that situation, it's usually stuff that I've decided to do. You know, I add this, or I add that, or I think this is good to do, or I think that needs to be done. And so what I do when I get overwhelmed is I just go back to the basics. And I say, Lord, my list is this big. What do I really need to do? And He never gives me 18 of those things to do.
Yeah, yeah.
He always says, well, just knock this one off. Just do this. This is the most important. And if you just do what He tells you to do, if you just let Him lead you, it's a much better thing. And I'm not saying this as somebody that's learned it completely,
Yeah.
because I think we all get to that point, right, where our list is just too big. But we obsess over the whole list instead of just taking the thing that's the most important and taking care of it. So, you know, Jesus did that. You know, He used to go up to the mountain and get away all the time. And I'm sure, and I know He didn't have a list, you know, He didn't have paper to write down a list. He had all these things on His mind that were important, and all these people that needed His time. And, you know, how did He manage it? He got away with the Lord, and He said, you know, Father, what do I do today? And then He just walked off of the mountaintop, or out of the wilderness, you know. He walked out of there and He just did what the Father told Him. And I think that's what helped Him a lot. So that's my, you know, thing, is I just get away with the Lord. I say, listen, I can't do this. What can I do? You know?
That's how all that, oh, go ahead.
One of my mentors, he's since gone to be with the Lord. His name is Bob Warren. He was an NBA basketball player, but while in his latter years, he accepted Christ. And because he had that platform of being an NBA player and accepting Christ, people wanted him to come and speak many different places. And so he would accept everything. He would do Bible study, go this place and this place and this place, and he was doing all these good things. But at one point, everything came crashing down, and he went blind. his blood pressure had gotten so sky high, and he went blind, and they put him in the hospital. And as he's laying there in the bed, he recalls having this conversation with God. He said, God, I've had it. I did this for you. I went and spoke to this place. I did this for you. I did this for you. I did this for you. God, I quit. And he said all of a sudden, he heard this voice say to him, good. Now maybe I can do something through you. And he said that was the turning point of his life and learning how to rest in God. And his whole life transformed at that point. And you know, it's not just enough for us to, you know, that verse says to take every thought captive, and that is a very powerful voice. But you can't do that in your own flesh. As you take that to him, you just can't do it yourself. You gotta allow him to reveal things to you that you're thinking that's not there too. And so it goes hand in hand.
It's a change in perspective.
Exactly.
Right in the spirit. This morning I was walking and I kind of was having one of those days. And turn your eyes toward Jesus kept running there, especially the verse about, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim. And when your eyes are there, all those things that you're worrying about and priorities and all this stuff, they do grow strangely dim because your perspective has not changed. And a lot of times that's what I pray is, Lord, give me another perspective.
What I love about that is the acronym AIM, AIM, which is abide in me. And where our aim is, it's like Peter walking on the water, right? I mean, as long as he had his focus on Christ, he was above the circumstances of the wind and the waves and everything else. When he took his eyes off of Christ and his aim shifted, all of the weariness, all of the burden,
Come right back on. Yeah.
As the Lord was showing me about rest at the beginning of this year, it was really difficult to hear some of the things he was telling me, and it was even harder to do some of the things he was telling me, because I used to start the week and I'd make this list of 100 things, you know, and then I wouldn't get much of anything done because I couldn't make sense of it, and I would just beat myself up. So he'd been teaching me really something Beth, my daughter-in-law Beth, had told me once. I think it was when we were taking my mom to visit assisted living facilities, and I didn't realize I was going to be so emotional about it. I should have. And we were also cleaning her house out and get ready to sell it. And there was so much to do because my mom couldn't do a lot of the heavy lifting and selling the house and stuff, so my sister and I were doing it. And Beth, I just said, would y'all pray for me today? And she said, what did she say? Be easy with yourself. Show yourself grace. I had never thought of that before. I wasn't really taught that as a child. I was taught you don't ask for anything and you do the work. That's just sort of how we were raised, and that's a good thing. I've got a great work ethic now, and still working on the don't ask anybody for anything. But I struggled with a lot of what he had to say about taking it easy, be careful with myself, show yourself grace. And I started getting down on myself because for some reason, with my attention focusing issues, I found myself during the day just wanting to go lay down on the couch and play a word game. Or in the morning I would get my lap tray out and put on praise music and I'd start playing solitaire. And I started feeling so guilty about that, you know, and I'll share later, the Lord was like, where does guilt come from? But he eventually showed me that I wasn't being lazy. I wasn't being sacrilegious, playing solitaire while I'm listening to praise music and praising him. But he said, let's see if I can give you the right words. This morning a thought came to me, Abba, and I believe it was from you. You have helped me realize that I play solitaire with cards as a way to get away from my ADHD, in which it's not that I can't focus on one thing, I focus on everything at the same time. And so those thoughts, when I can't physically and mentally remove myself from that situation, this is something you've given me to do, so I don't need to feel guilt about it. It's not an escape, but I love this word. He said, but it's a chance to reset. I love that word, reset. It's like wipe the slate clean, forget the incorrect information, start over. I love that word. You've shown me some things during my month of leading worship, and I think I already shared this with you, how much the maintenance of my health requires, and then not getting to spend time with family and friends, which I am learning. We're not quite empty nesters. We're getting there. Caleb's still at home.
Hi, Caleb.
Thank you for the flowers this morning, Caleb. Caleb, thank you for the flowers that I found on the table this morning with a sweet, sweet note. I love when my kids say, we've taken such advantage of you. You're such a great mom. You know how many years I've waited? I've waited 20 years to do that. Although my kids all have a heart of compassion and mercy, and they're very, very kind and doting. All right. Squirrel. Okay.
Hey Michelle, when you said that word reset, the verse that came to my mind, it's Philippians 3, and it's where Paul is writing, and he says he hasn't obtained it yet or become perfect, but I press on. And then he says, I haven't laid hold of it yet, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead. To me, that's a reset. It's like, you know, stuff has happened, right? That stuff that's happened is done, and I'm looking ahead. To me, that's him saying, I need a reset. He's not saying it that way, but
Right.
but what he's saying is, look, stuff has happened, and I can't do anything about it. And I haven't been perfect, right? I'm not there yet. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look ahead. I think that's a really positive way to talk about a reset. Because we all have those days or those times where we're down, or we've got that list and we've been trying in our own strength to fix something. Sometimes it's just say, Lord, I'm gonna forget all of that. What should I do today, and how should I move forward?
Isn't it funny how we know that? We know to take things to the Lord. We know that we are seated in the heavenly places. We are heirs with Jesus. And then still, some days we get down and we get emotional, and it's like, I know better than this. I found myself saying that.
I find it really encouraging that somebody like the Apostle Paul, after so many years of him living probably one of the greatest lives that's ever been lived for the Lord, right?
Yeah.
He still says, at this point in his life, I still haven't attained it. I still have to forget what just happened and move on. So it's an encouragement to me that, hey, I can do that too.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I think one of the last things I'm going to share today, when you were talking about being upset and frustrated, during spring break we had several things planned. We were going to we went to the Home and Garden Show. We went out to eat. We might have seen a movie or something. It might have been the second chosen we saw, something like that. But anyway, it was during spring break week. One day I was having such a very, very hard time. Abby had moved out a month before, and then 2 weeks later she took JJ. She has a Belgian Shepherd, a long-haired black Belgian Shepherd named JJ. He's about 91-year-old in human years. He's really old. And then the cat, Kit Kat. So She moved out. 2 weeks later, she gets JJ. 2 weeks later, I think, she is gonna come and get Kit Kat. And I didn't realize how attached to this cat I had become during that 2 weeks, because nobody else is home, so I'm having my quiet time, and she comes, and we just have a little morning routine. And so one of the first couple of days of spring break, she says, we're gonna come and get Kit Kat. So she did, and I helped her pack all her stuff. And the next day, we'd already been talking about, when our kids leave home, what are we gonna do with these empty rooms or these open rooms? And so I took Abby's room, I was so excited. I took it and made it a playroom. So we have this great big train track table, you know, with drawers, and put Legos and train tracks, and just all kinds of toys and supplies in there. And so the day after she picked up the cat, Tony and I went in there and we started sweeping and vacuuming and dusting and moving her stuff out of the way. And as the day went on, I started feeling so heavy, and it never dawned on me at the moment. All right, I'll backtrack. Before that happened, this is the end of March. And it just goes to show how many times God will speak to us, and how many times he has to remind us that he has given us truth. And he is, of course, for me, sometimes I don't remember. Good morning, Abba. I woke with my heart so troubled about a couple of friends and their response to me. I was feeling, about a question I asked them. I was feeling angry earlier, but now I'm grieving over how they could think that about me. Please help me, Abba. What do I do? And this was a painful couple of days. Please help me, Abba. What do I do? What do you think he said to me? Not rest. What scripture do you think? Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He started this February 3rd. This is March 29th. Oh, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Yes, of course, Abba, I come to you now. Show me how to take your yoke upon me and learn from you and find rest for my soul. And I was like, how? I should know this. So that was before Tony woke up one morning. We always have coffee and do worship time together. Then he came in and started playing some music. And in my despair and distress, and maybe feeling a little sorry for myself because somebody thought something bad about me, it wasn't true, he starts playing Not Over Yet by King and Country. It says, when you've hit your limit, when you think it's finished, it's not over yet. Hope is rising. Run till the race is won. Keep on fighting, out of the dark into the light. And that's when God now had me look at the command words of those 2-3 verses. Come. So I looked those up in the Greek. Come means come here, come away with me. Y'all know that Nora Jones song? Come away with me. I love that song. It's a very gentle, follow me. So come to me. Take my yoke upon you. Take upon oneself and carry it. You bear it. And you will find rest for your soul. Find for oneself, to acquire, to obtain, to procure. So it's not like, I'm looking, I'm not finding it. It's more of an action. You dig deep. You acquire, you obtain, you're actively looking. And then learn of me, to increase in knowledge. That's the same as the factual. Abba, you've overwhelmed me with your love. I'm meditating on these words and just marinating in the word come. I am weeping at this realization of your great love for me. Lord, I was getting ready to dig in and pack learning all the meanings of these words in the Greek. But Abba, you've invited me to sit and abide with you in the word come. Come away with me. I hear you say, come and follow. Come here. Come abide with me. You, Yahweh, the creator of the universe and the king of all, want me to come away with you. How beautiful is this? I don't want to leave. Caught up in your presence. I never want to leave. That song came to me. You're not just saying, come here, girl, but come to me for the purpose of refreshing and sustaining me. You're seeing me exhausted, physically and mentally depleted, until literally weighed down. You've called me to come away with you so you can give me an intermission for the purpose of being restored. Rest. He says to me, you have stated this well, my dear, for this is exactly what I want for you. Remain in me and I in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. I don't want to be apart from you, Abba, and I definitely don't want to do anything on my own. Not temporary, but eternal. Not spinning my wheels or digging in my heels, putting out fires, pumping out tires, that kind of thing. But contentedly coming away with you and joyfully following you. I never want to leave. And he said to me, I love that you love to be with me, daughter. And I said, I love it about you too, Daddy. So that's the beginning. That was part one. Let's see. So that was the beginning. I have more to read to you out of my journal. Next week, I'd like to show you what he told me about how do we enter into his rest. That might even be harder than realizing we need rest in the first place. And then he says, will you accept my invitation to rest? So I want to talk about those things next week.
That was really good. I like that.
Good.
I like how, and I tried my best to listen very attentively, but me and you might have the same disease, especially when you shared about the same thing that you do. Like, we're the same. I'm not undiagnosed. But I like how when you journal, right, and it's a process that takes time, and it's almost like I don't want to say the end of it because it's like ongoing, right? But like there's a point where you reflect, and maybe there's a realization that you were asking the wrong question, right? And I can relate to that because when I pray, when I try to hear God's voice, a lot of times there's just silence, and it's like maybe it's the wrong time, maybe I won't fully understand it, and it's through my own fruition and maybe my own lived experience is going to be the best way for that to unfold, and that's what I got a little bit out of like your different journal entries, and I can relate to that for sure. I journal myself, and it's really hard. I like it because it's really hard to bullcrap myself in the journal.
You really learn a lot about yourself.
Oh, wait, that ain't true.
Right.
So there's some utility
Yeah.
in that for sure.
And once it's written down, you can't deny that it happened. You can't deny that he told you that.
Right.
Yeah.
But just God's timing, right? It's just like
Mhm.
such a way, and it's profound in that sense,
Yeah. When I first started journaling, and I had read that guidepost article, I was so nervous because I thought, I don't want to write something down that wasn't God. That'd be sacrilegious. That'd be prideful. And as I went along, I felt encouraged to write it down anyway. It's not going to change the price of tea in China if you write something down thinking it was me and it wasn't me. And so I learned by doing that. And as the months and years went by, I started coming to recognize, oh, you've said that before. That sounds like you. That's what your word says. That lines up with the 66 books. But there are many, many times where I would, good morning, Lord, and go through and I'd ask him a question. And there's several places in all my journals. I put M when I say a question, and I'll put A for Abba. And there's so many where it's just A, ... There was never an answer. A lot of times he would say, keep reading, whatever book I was reading, whatever scripture I was reading. So there's not always an answer. But it's so encouraging how journaling, conversations with him, not just, it's not a diary. I'm not like writing, well, yesterday I did this. I'm actually talking to him and he's talking back to me. So I had so much trouble hearing him when I was younger. And I've heard other people say, how do you hear him? You know, and it doesn't happen overnight. But that's where your faith kicks in, and that's where obedience comes in, because he tells us to learn his word, write those things on our heart. So I want to encourage you all. You never know where people are, and I don't want to. I think my nature is to assume everybody else in here hears God perfectly, much better than me, and I'm not going to go on it. But I don't want to take for granted that everybody, I just want to encourage you all with this word from God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for not
All right, we got some flowers to give out. Then we need to set the captives free. So we'll do that as they come up because those ladies need it too. But Michelle, you did a good job. Thank you for being obedient with what God's been showing you, and look forward to what you're going to share next week. Because sometimes we deny we need rest. Sometimes we know we need rest, but we don't know how to do it. And so next week will be a very good time for us to take in those two things. So, anybody have anything else they need to share? Oh, yeah. Before we get to announcements, anything anybody else needs to share? Yes, Greg.
Happy Mother's Day to you, Ms. Michelle.
Thank you.
That actually, like Mr. Brother said, none of those I was told by my family I should learn too, because I'm an overthinker, and I have addiction problems and some not teach genetics, and I try and meditate every day, and I find myself stuck the same way. Like, what's that empty void? Like, is that me or is that God? You know what I mean? I don't know. And I just dive into different ideologies straight away. Until with Peter, you know, and that brought me back to Christ, as far as Christ consciousness and knowing, you know, I'm born in the Baptist church, so, you know, sometimes we deter and question these things happening to the world, because we're in the world, but when you're a child, it's like, you don't know until you grow, you know, and that right there was very comforting, and my mother's name is Michelle, so that's cool too. That's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg, also for you being so transparent and sharing where you are and the struggles that you have. And you know, that's one thing about this body is that we are able to do that. And you'll see that the more that you come, that we all have struggles.
Yeah, definitely.
And none of us are exempt from it. It's just part of being part of this world. Jesus said, you are going to have struggles, but I have come to give you rest. And so this is a timely word for us, especially in the world that we live in.
Yeah, and it's like, my girl, married her, she works a lot, she's so tired, and it's draining me, and so I was like, let's go to work, and I go there, and it's like, I'm emotional, and everyone can tell, what I do, you know, I don't want to commit sin, you know, to where I, you know, take away my freedom, and so I'm just like, that's the best option for God, and like, God will give you rest, Jesus will give you rest. So I'm definitely read more on that and meditate on it.
Well, I know that's a word that Michelle heard, that Cindy heard. I know that Michael, which is Lynn's oldest son, at his church, he's taking them through learning what Sabbath rest is. And taking the whole body into that, which I know, because I've heard a little bit from Cindy, that's something. And so that might be something God is like wanting to bring to us. Because, you know, face it, you know, we're in a world that's not at peace. We're in a world that goes 100 miles a minute. And when you're in that world, that comes and it gets on you. I mean, you want to shake off that dust and get that grime off of you, and you want to be at peace. You want rest. And that's something important for us to learn. So,
I have a question, like, I was told to heal without prejudice. I don't know what that means.
tell you what, why don't you and I talk afterwards?
Okay.
Okay? All right, because I want to go into that a little bit more. All right? So get with me afterwards, Greg, okay? Anybody else have anything they want to share before we get to announcements? Yes, Bill?
Well, I need everybody to keep me in mind and pray for me, because I have to go to the doctor. I think it's like the 23rd of May. They're gonna do all the blood tests like they did last May when I was in the hospital. They had to give me blood transfusions. They're gonna make sure my hemoglobin's staying up and it's not falling like it did last May. That's what made me have to go in the hospital when I did. My hemoglobin dropped down to 4.6, and I was sitting there in my doctor's office, and he asked me, how am I seeing still sitting up? He said I shouldn't even be alive or anything. So, you know, I just pray that it's
So
staying
May
up.
23rd, you're going to go
I
in
think
and
it's
get the
21st
test.
or 23rd. They'll text me when I gotta come.
All
And
right.
just pray that it's staying up, cause I'd rather take a beating than have to go through getting blood transfusions, cause it's not even fun. I gotta be honest with you. You know, I just hate, I hate it, you know. I just don't like having to go through that. And
We'll bring that up on Monday night too.
Yeah.
And
We'll
for
pray
me-
for you Monday night.
For me, I remember it like it happened yesterday. The hardest thing was them putting the catheter in my arm. They tore my arms off to pieces, both arms. So I just don't enjoy going through that. I'm not a coward, I'm not afraid, I'm not a chicken, but it's no fun. So I don't wish that on nobody, you know.
Anybody in here love needles?
I do.
I didn't see anybody who would disagree with
I
you.
don't think
Nobody
we
here
do.
loves needles.
I love them when I'm the one holding them.
Yeah, there are certain people, Lynn likes the stick, is what I'm hearing.
That's fun as sticking somebody.
I think we're supposed to keep
Getting
this
stuck
thing.
with the needle, honestly. Getting stuck with a needle, honestly, isn't that bad.
They have to get some further.
It depends on who's giving you the needle. That's
No,
what I've learned.
I really don't care. My mom gives me a needle every 2 weeks.
I don't care who it is. I don't care how much training you've had. I don't care how long you've been doing it. I don't care if people say that you, Right there with you.
Well, what I love is you see right here the difference between one daughter and another. It is so neat.
I don't get why people are scared of IVs because the needle comes out of you. It's not like it's in you. There's just a plastic straw.
Yeah, man, we afraid not to go there.
Some people can't do it and some people can't do it.
All right, not to needle this on anymore, but
Get to point.
we also have this week, we have our community cookout on Thursday. And so it's all hands on deck. Last month, it was totally awesome. And I expect the weather will be great again. We'll have a huge crowd. We had the biggest crowd we've ever had for our first time last month. And so we could use anybody, no matter what you're able to do, whether it's able to give out a bag or put a pickle on someone's plate, or just sit at someone's table and just talk to them. Talk to them about peace and rest, and the one who gives that. Just listening sometimes is one of the most important things. Just asking, how are things going in your life? That's an easy question to ask. And then from then on, see where God takes it. So we can use anybody and everybody. If your gift is talking, we could use you. If your gift is walking, we could use you.
Listening. If your gift is
Listening, yes, all those. So we'd love to have you. So 4 o'clock is setup time, 5 o'clock is when we serve, then we turn down at 7 o'clock. And we have a great griller over here named Scott Faulkner. And he'll probably tell you he's not great, but
Yes.
he stepped in for Matt Hine last month, and he did an awesome job.
Yes, amazing.
So,
Well, his assistant did a pretty good job too.
well, when you're able to taste them as you're grilling them, you know, I took each one and licked them and put them back on just to check and just make sure, you know.
Quality assurance.
Quality assurance, exactly. So,
Well, I told Paul I thought they tasted better than last month than I ever tasted at the cookout. I thought it was a better hamburger, but maybe it was the cooks.
mine were
I
actually
didn't know
juicy.
which hot hamburgers come off of Scott's grill. I mean,
All right, any other announcements? All right, it's been good to be together. You ladies have a wonderful Mother's Day, and we want to get you all these lovely flowers from Tim Scarlett's garden. Make sure you tell Tim thank you also. So, Father, I just thank you for today. I thank you for how it's good to be together with brothers and sisters. Lord, I pray for all my sisters here that you give them a great day. Let them know how much they are loved and appreciated. Let them know that you love them no matter what. You've made them in your image. You've made them in your likeness. And you have special plans for each and every one of them. And we thank you for them. We say this in your name.